Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started. I really appreciate you coming and spending your time with us today. This panel is Chrome Web Store Publisher Forum. My name is Seth. I'm a developer advocate here with Google. I work with the Chrome team, which means we focus on Chrome, HTML5, and the open web platform. We work with partners of all different sizes to help them get up productively on these APIs and products. A couple of housekeeping notes. This session is being streamed live, so for everyone here and everyone at home, we have a Google Moderator link up here. Please do enter your questions here, vote them up and down, and at the end of the sessions, we'll do an open Q&A, so please come up to the mics or we'll use the moderator here as well. Please do find me and any of us. My Twitter handle is @SethLad. Here at the show, after this session, or just online, love to chat with everyone, what they're doing with HTML5 and Chrome and Web Store and apps. So definitely love to hear about what you're up to. So this is the Web Store panel, and I want to give a quick recap of what's been happening lately. We actually announced the Web Store 1 year ago at Google I/O. Worked really hard on it, released it in December of last year. And today it's integrated with every US version of Chrome right there on the new tab page. So Chrome users are now getting access to the Web Store. Chrome is a platform in and of itself with 120 million active users. It's really cool to think about Chrome as a platform, not as a browser. So we have Chrome Enterprise, Chrome Browser, Chrome OS Netbooks, Chrome Frame, lots of different ways to get Chrome into the hands of your users. So whenever a new platform arises, the question now is, well, the user expectations are really changing, and they're saying, where are the apps? They're no longer concerned about Wi-Fi or anything like that. They want to know where the apps are. And so the Chrome Web Store gets your apps into the hands of the Chrome platform users. This is might sound really obvious point, but I think it's subtle and bears repeating that the Chrome Web Store users use Chrome. And if we think about this, that means that the users of your apps can get the full power and benefit of HTML5, fast release cycles, and the Chrome browser. So this is, in a sense, your safety net to develop and deliver great HTML5 apps and not necessarily have to worry about legacy browsers. So it's your chance now to really push forward the power of your apps on the web. Today we're going to hear from 3 different successful Chrome Web Store publishers, each telling a different story about their experiences. We're going to start with Springpad, who's going to tell us their story of how they moved from a website to a web app and explore some of the differences between sites and apps. We'll then hear from World Golf Tour, who's going to tell us a little bit about what happened after they published in the Web Store and why you should publish into the Web Store. And then New York Times will take it on home to talk about HTML5 and some of the great APIs and tools there to develop a really powerful HTML5 app. But you didn't come here to listen to me, so I'd like to turn it over first to Jason Horman, Chief Architect of Springpad, who will tell us moving from website to web app.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Horman, Chief Architect and co-founder at Springpad. And I've been a Boston-based developer for about 15 years. Started out at lycoast.com and been doing DHTML since then, doing Java, Python, and working in the Boston developer community. So what is Springpad? Springpad is a task application. It's a node application. It's an application to track your movies, your books. It's really a way to organize your life, and we like to think of it as a database for your life. So we store all of this information in a structured way that allows us to enhance it, to provide enhancements to it. We can give you movie showtimes. We can give you restaurant reviews. We can take your notes and do more with them than a traditional just text-based node application. So back in August of last year, we had launched our iPhone apps. We had launched our Android app. And we noticed a problem. We noticed that the web applications engagement was trailing our mobile applications by quite a bit. It was almost 2 to 1. And we took a look at that, and we're just thinking, what do we need to do? What is it about those mobile applications that's working in the web? What is it about the website that's sort of not working? And we sort of came to the conclusion that the great thing about the mobile applications was that they were so focused, that the constraints of the device allowed us to think through how do we make a great application that users can get in, get out, and use very quickly to get their tasks done. And we looked at the web application and sort of noticed that we had designed more of a website than a web application, that the website had a lot of extra information. It had settings buttons, and it had your sort of profile picture. It was fixed width. It used a number of sort of web development, website techniques, and we took a look at this and said, let's think about how to move this along and become a true web application. And I think that what that means is that we want that application to sort of feel like a desktop application. And so what was natural for us to think about was to launch that into the Chrome App Store. So we wanted to launch this as an app, relaunch this as an app. So the process from moving from a site to an app, well, we had a frame of reference. Our mobile applications were sort of where we wanted to be. We liked the idea that our users are using their iPads, they're using their Zoom tablets, and they like the interface, and they want to know that when they move between devices and between modalities that they're using the same application, and they understand how to use that application, so we wanted to unify. So where did we start? We started with our navigation. We decided, let's go full screen. Let's sort of remove all of that extra cruft that is great for a website that doesn't work great for a web application. Headers, footers. Let's make it feel like this is an app you've installed onto your desktop and moves as fast as you need to move. The next thing we did was we sort of added the polish. So we sweated the details around gradients, colors, the HTML5, CSS3 animations. We added user customization features, theming, let users select their own backgrounds, let them really customize their experience so they feel like they own it. Then we sort of took it a step further, and we introduced what we called the board. And what the board is, it allows our users to organize their information visually. They can take those notes, take those tasks, take those restaurants, and they can place them onto sort of a board there where they can organize things underneath a label of Tuesday, Wednesday. They can sort of group the related information together that they want. They can resize each individual component. They can drag and drop off the desktop files, notes, attachments, photos. And again, we sort of like the idea of taking notes a step further and allowing users to use them any way they want. And for us, a number of our users wanted to be able to do it in a sort of visual way. So where we ended up was that we were really proud that we have a cross-platform experience. All of our apps sort of feel and look the same. And I think that's really important in that, again, our users can understand our platform in one place. They might not even really understand that we have a web application yet, but when they finally make that jump between modes, they understand where they are. And I think this can apply in the future towards Google TV. Wherever we are, we want to have sort of a consistent experience. And that experience is our application. So it's only natural for our web application to feel like an application. So how did we do since launching? Well, right after launch, you can see that we had a spike in that our web application users started to match our Android users. We actually doubled our web application users in the next 2 months after launching into the Chrome App Store. Another important metric is that we had a 5x growth in the number of saves. One of the metrics we like to track is that people are saving a lot of things, and that's sort of engagement. And we like to think that because the application was faster and simpler and more engaging, that these users were just saving a lot more into the system. Other statistics, the web makes up about 50% of our daily access now. That's up quite a bit since launch. And our Chrome users spend Chrome App Store users spend a lot of time in our application. They spend on average about 30 minutes a day, which is fantastic. They sort of leave it up all day, and they record new notes into it. We also have a Chrome browser extension where, as they're surfing the web, they can be clipping directly into their Springpad. All I can say is it is the best. Feedback from some of our users from the Chrome Web Store. Wow, absolutely fantastic. So I want to talk a little bit about websites versus apps again. So another thing I'd like to point out is that we feel that productivity users are sort of app-focused people. They think about desktop apps quite a bit. They might think about, in the old days, installing a task management app or using Outlook. And I think it's only natural for those people to want to install an application. And so I think it might seem like a minor distinction, but becoming more of an application sort of, I think, especially these days with Android and iPhone pushing the envelope of applications and pushing consumers to understand what they are, that's really important. So what makes applications great is, what makes web applications great is they should be very, very fast. They should have a layout that fills the screen, that feels like it would if you were clicking it on the dock. And I assume in the future, that's where we'll be. You could run a web application right from your dock. And I wouldn't want it to feel like a website when I do that. On that note, I think applications are a little more task-oriented than websites. Websites are more about browsing. So when you're in an application, you want to do something. You want to create a task. You want to create a note. You want to act on it. You want to book a reservation. And I think apps also imply some additional functionality that you don't necessarily associate with the web, which includes background notifications, background processing, offline access is a big one, and Chrome provides that through local storage, through WebSQL, and IndexedDB. So people are looking for apps, and where do they go to find apps? Well, they go to the Chrome App Store, of course. The great thing about an app store, obviously, is when you're searching for apps, it provides a curated experience to browse and search for those applications. You're not just going to the Google and searching for a task and sifting through the millions of results that might come back. You're going to get what you were looking for, which is a web-based application for handling tasks, movies, whatever you were searching for. And obviously, for companies, it provides a new channel to reach users. There's traditional advertising, affiliate, but having these stores now, for us, for iPhone, for Android, the marketplace, and now the Chrome App Store, it provides this amazing channel to get users into your application. The other thing the App Store provides is that enhanced permission feature, where you can, when you install from the App Store, you can request things like unlimited storage or access to your geolocation. And that opens up a lot of possibilities for designing complicated applications. So today, we're announcing that we've implemented Springpad offline. We think, again, productivity apps should feel very, very fast. Well, offline isn't necessarily all about being offline. One of the great things about implementing offline support is that you're essentially saying that I'm going to sync all the users' data to their machine. So even when they're online, they're using their local database. And that's very powerful. They're not waiting for these RPC connections or JSON connections to servers where those servers might have some latency. Some of you in the room probably have experienced that a few weeks ago, Amazon had some issues. Our user base wasn't super happy about that. And at the same time, we were building our offline support, and we were just thinking to ourselves, wow, if we had this, that whole Chrome user base wouldn't have even really cared, because all their data was local, and they might not have even really noticed that we went down. Our iPhone users and our Android users didn't really notice, and now our Chrome users won't really notice necessarily. We based this implementation on WebSQL. We needed the power of SQL. Springpad does a lot of select group by count, a lot of complicated queries to filter down for the notes you're interested in, the movies you're trying to find, and WebSQL provided that power for us. The New York Times is going to talk a little bit about how they use WebSQL and the performance that it provides. And one of the great things about WebSQL is that it's based on SQLite. And our Android app is based on SQLite. So we took our Android code base. We used GWT, Java to Java. Very simple. We sort of just moved our database class from Android over to Chrome and got up and running very, very quickly. And again, another really huge benefit of this is that all these Chrome users are not touching our servers anymore. And we have to run quite a few servers to keep up with the number of users we have installing our applications. And we've seen that we're reducing our server queries by 30 to 40% by having this offline access, which is just amazing. And our apps guy is sort of thanking us for Chrome. So where we ended up, we converted our web, I'd say, site to a web app. We believe that now it's a multimodal world where you have to sort of address that there are a lot of clients out there. And I think that consistent UX is key to that. These users should understand your application and understand how it works in a consistent way, which means you should bring your Chrome app, your web apps, up to speed with these mobile applications. And I would argue make them as simple and as streamlined as those mobile applications are. And HTML5 makes this possible. In particular, I'd say the WebSQL stuff really is amazing, and it will provide some real strong performance benefits to your applications. So I'm Jason Horman from Springpad.com, Twitter @jhorman. And now I'm going to pass it to Yoo Chang from World Golf Tour to talk a little bit more about Chrome. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Yoo Chang. I'm the co-founder of World Golf Tour. I'm a serial entrepreneur, which probably means I should seek some help. But despite that, let me share a couple of stories that we have about World Golf Tour, as well as talk about our experience with publishing on the Google Chrome Web Store. So World Golf Tour, we're based here in San Francisco, and we're just leading the way in changing how people and sports fans can engage with the web and the products that they like. In the past, sports fans, in order to game, they had really limited options. They could either go to the local brick and mortar store, buy a game console for, I don't know, $300, buy the game they wanted to play for another $60 or $40, and get a really, really great visual and engaging experience. Or they could go on the web, and really for sports fans, the main web application or web use that they had was looking up scores, reading about the news, or playing fantasy sports. Each of those had their own limitations in terms of how the fan could engage with those products. And so at World Golf Tour, what we've done is we've been able to merge the visual aspects of a game console, a AAA title such as a game from EA or so, and actually bring that onto the web and bring that same experience to have all the openness, the accessibility, the ease of use, and actually the free use of that type of game online. So as you can see here, this is a shot of Harbor Town, and that's actually a screen capture of our product. And it doesn't take any download. You don't need to install anything to play this game. And the visuals are really the best in the world. So that formula has worked out really well for us to be able to bring the accessibility of the web with the production qualities and large budgets of the big game publishers. We have over 3 million registered users now. We're the largest golfing game online property there is. And we've been able to merge the game with a more traditional online media model in that now we're the #3 largest website for golf in the world also. And so being able to sort of create a hybridization of gaming, which is very engaging content, with the accessibility of a website has done very well for us. So here's a quick video of our product, and I'll just walk you through it here very shortly. In our product, it's very simple. You basically go to the website, or in this case, the Google Chrome Web Store. You can go and choose from 14 world-famous courses. These are all courses that are in the top 100 in the world. Anything from Kiwa Island, Bethpage Black, St. Andrews, as well as at Pebble Beach at times. And it's a whole community of people. They not only play games, but they read the news, they social network with each other. We have our own social graph that they're able to connect with other golfers to play multiplayer games with each other. They're also able to play in tournaments against each other. So they take their gaming skill and actually can compete in tournaments. And they actually win real prizes and are able to see how they rank against the rest of the players in the world. We also have a virtual golf store where you're able to buy virtual equipment. So what you're able to do is we have partnerships with brands like Ping, TaylorMade, and Callaway. And what we do is we actually take that equipment, we take the physics properties and the CAD cams of those equipment, we actually hit them in the store, record all the properties of them, and then actually put them into the game. So if an R11 driver is easier to hit and it has a larger sweet spot and you can hit the golf ball a little further, you get those same properties here in the game. We also have a strong sponsorship model. So between the sponsorship model and the virtual item sales, we're able to basically give the game for free for everyone to go and play. Let's see here. So let me show you a little bit about how we build it, because it's actually pretty interesting. We actually go to all the different golf courses, and we take helicopters and aircrafts, and we actually fly over the course and laser scan them to half-an-inch accuracy. That allows us to produce all the different surfaces as well as the greens and replicate them to a high degree of accuracy, where if you roll the ball across the greens, it'll actually roll and dip and move exactly like it does in real life. It was so accurate, in fact, that for the last US Open, the players actually played our game ahead of time to get used to the course, to understand where it was. And there's a guy named Riju Yamada, who's a pretty famous golfer in Japan. He actually prepared for Bethpage Black about 16 hours, just rolling the ball across our virtual greens, looking at how it played. Here's a quick video of us flying over Oakmont. So basically what happens is after we laser scan the course, we take roughly 300,000 photographs of the course. We geotag all that information, and it's sort of like a Street View on steroids. You're able to then walk through the course and not only see the photographs at each individual point, but you're also able to interact with each of the photographs. We have a very complex metadata layer behind each of these photographs mapped onto the 3D environment model that we build to great detail that allows you to then interact with every single pixel on that photograph. So Oakmont's a beautiful course if you haven't been there. So here's a quick view of one of our internal tools. Basically what it does is after we geotag every photograph, we are able to put it into our tool set, which then basically places the photograph in its correctly geolocated space and actually tries to align it into the 3D model automatically. It's pretty cool technology. So at the end of the day, this is what you get. You get to play a game on a beautiful golf course for free in your Chrome web browser. So as you can tell, we have a pretty mature game. It's a really big budget product. And we're in the phase where we're really just trying to find more users for the product. What we've learned is that when people come and they show up and they're able to experience the game, they stay and they like to play and they're very engaged. So for us, what we're doing is we're looking for new channels of user acquisition. Right now, we actually drive a lot of users from Google AdWords as well as from Facebook, and we're actually looking for a different way of driving users so that we don't have so much dependence on single sources of traffic. And so we're also looking for the fact that different players from different channels actually have different spending and engagement characteristics. And so our company is pretty driven by our analytics, and what we're looking for is actually a user profile that could actually spend more time on our product, be able to target those users better, and then have them deposit, buy the virtual items, and participate longer on a product, and effectively have a higher lifetime value to us from making deposits. And one of the major barriers to actually getting someone to be worth something to us in terms of deposit value is actually getting through the payments hurdle. And so that's actually a big problem that we have, where you get large breakage from the top of the funnel into the deposit. And just a few percentage points even in terms of reducing the friction to get that deposit means a lot. It turns out to be a very substantial difference in the revenue you can generate from each of the users. So we were looking for some solutions and some channels where the payment mechanism could effectively have a lot less friction. So that really brought us to find the Chrome Web Store. And so, as usual, what we wanted to do is test things. And so our approach to this was to basically take our product, package it into an application, and put it into the web store. And for us, we decided to go with 2 different applications. And the main reason for this is we wanted to A/B test the duration and simplicity that's required to have an application in the Chrome Web Store and see how it affected conversion rates as well as LTV. So we created 2 apps. One of them is a 9-shot challenge, which is actually a very narrated, simple experience where the user basically comes in and can do 9 quick shots. They don't need to really know anything about golf at all, and they can come and play the game quickly. It's a very simple experience. Our second application is the full product, where they can actually go play all the different courses. There's less hand-holding of the user as they get into the environment. And there's a lot more depth of play. And so we were just seeing, like, what's the trade-off between the conversion rate between something that's more simple versus something that's a little bit more in-depth versus the long-term value of the users that we acquired on the simple product versus the more in-depth product. So as it turns out, the simple product is working better. The conversion rates are higher, and the LTVs are actually the same. So this game here is actually the #1 sports game on the Chrome Web Store now. And this is the short version of our product. And the second one is the longer version. And what we've learned is that they're actually worth relatively the same. The shorter product converts better. So you can see, the users have rated it, 4.5 stars out of 5. They love the experience. They really value the fact that there's a large budget product game available in the Chrome Web Store, and that they can play it. So let me just go into more details about the results. This is the most popular sports game right now, and we basically acquired over 60,000 users in just 6 months. What's surprising to us and a great sign is that of the users that we acquire on the Google Chrome Web Store, they play on average 23% more in terms of time and duration on our site than all the users we get on aggregate from the other channels. So they're highly engaged compared to the rest of the web. Additionally, these are users who spend money. These are users, for some reason, that we're trying to delve into, have a better sort of deposit rate than we get from the rest of the internet. So on average, they deposit 147% more in terms of lifetime value to us, which is a great sign because you never know what the channels are, especially if they're free. And this is really the #1 statistic that we look at. And because of that, we're putting our full weight and shoulder behind launching more applications and putting more marketing and product development behind our products on the Chrome Web Store. So we're announcing today that this summer you're going to be able to basically experience the full US Open through the web store. And with a partnership with the USGA, the US Open, and ourselves and Google, you're going to be able to see live streaming of the US Open golf tournament, as well as the scores. And through us, you're going to be able to actually play the same course that the professionals are playing at the same time online. So we've gone and shot Congressional and replicated it so you can go and play that. So the big takeaways for us is that large budget games can be successful in the Chrome Web Store. It was really easy for us to launch and repackage that. The folks at Google were very helpful. We basically got both applications up and running in less than a week. The rankings sort of speak for themselves, and the great surprise to us was the value of the users that we were able to acquire. And one of the things that I didn't quite emphasize enough, but is the payment part of it is actually pretty crucial. And we think that that's probably why our LTVs are higher here, is the trust of the Google brand to basically use the app payments or the Google checkout payments seem to be helping quite a bit. And for all of you guys, if you want to go try out our app, you can just go to the Chrome Web Store, type in WGT, find our app. And to help you out a little bit, you can put in IO, and we'll give you a free tailor-made driver that you can go and try. So on that note, I'm going to hand you off to Andre, who's going to talk a little bit about developing on the Chrome Web Store.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andre Behrens, and I am a senior product engineer for the New York Times, which means that in addition to writing code, I come up with product ideas and try to make them happen. So one of my main products that I work on is called Skimmer, which also serves as our Chrome app. You can find it on the Chrome Web Store, or you can go to nytimes.com/Chrome. So I'm just going to give a quick little demo of it here. So you can read articles in it, and it's got a nice columnated layout. You can navigate around sections very easily with nice little sliding. One of my favorite features is that you can really change the way it looks very quickly with the whole skinning engine. We have some enthusiastic users. They say things like, I love the app, best way to read the Times, basically the best thing ever. I think that's my favorite tweet I've read, and I've read a lot of tweets. Thousands of tweets, actually, and lots of comments on blog posts, on the store itself. If I had to summarize it into one sentence that you just hear over and over and over and over and over from the fans, it's like reading the paper, which really made me happy because that was sort of a goal. But I think there's an important point here That they're not saying that it's like the paper, they're saying it's like reading the paper. And I think that's a really important point when you're doing media consumption apps like we are. So this is our ideal customer from sort of the traditional business. He's sitting at the paper, he's very, very happy. We like to see that. What is he happy about? To sort of think about that, we should look at the alternative and why are our customers responding so much to our app? So we have the web. We all know it. I think it's sort of like this for a lot of people. It's enormous, it's amazing, it's full of a potential. It's also, we haven't figured out how to get around it entirely. We haven't figured out how to be comfortable in it. It takes some work to deal with it. And there are certain ways that it's broken for our customers. This is one of them. This is a developer conference, and we all sort of understand what makes this page happen. And so I think in the back of our mind, we a little bit sort of compensate for it. We don't think this is an enormous, huge failure for the user. This guy doesn't have that problem. You know, he picks up the paper, he reads it, the stuff's there, he's having a good time. He doesn't have to think about if something will just suddenly, like a page will just suddenly not be there. Nobody gets in their car and drives to Boston, and today it's just not there. This doesn't happen in the real world, and our customers don't like it. When it works the way this is working for him, it makes you feel calm about things. Things work the way you know they will. It makes you feel confident. It makes you feel empowered to use it. So the challenge is to bring this to our app. A newspaper is always available. It is consistent the way you use it. And it's a thing you can sort of understand. You can see what its boundaries are. You understand what it means. I don't think it's any accident that most of the browsers, when they first came out, were called things like Navigator and Explorer. We're looking for something slightly different here. I think that availability is the place to get the biggest gains right now. And I think HTML5 really does solve this for us. And this is really crucial. So the first step to making availability happen is that a good app always turns on. And the way to do that is to use the application cache. So a quick sort of run through of this. You're going to make a file, and you're going to basically describe to the browser how to handle every request it receives. And you do have to include every possible request one way or another. You're going to put this all in a file. You're going to give it an extension of manifest. You're going to reference it in an attribute in your HTML tag. On the server, you're going to have to set up a MIME type that is text application manifest. This will tell the browser, this is the one I'm going to use. All these things have to go through or it won't work. This is what the actual cache file looks like. You have a bunch of headers that are in all caps. Two really important sections of it, cache and network. Cache means I'm going to take this file and I'm going to put it in the mother of all browser caches. This is not going to hit your server again. Any file that's listed here, it's in the browser, it stays in the browser, it doesn't go out of the browser, it's just there. It just exists. And every file that's in here is pulled down in a transaction, which means that it won't pull down any of them until it can pull down all of them, which means having a situation where your assets aren't lining up doesn't happen. Think about that. So now you have all your files, your app is going to run. You also need to punch holes to tell it it's okay to hit the network for this. So this is going to be things like services. You may even just sort of wildcard the whole internet, say, if I didn't think of it already, go for it. There's a lot more to learn about it, and I will tell you that the initial stage of using the application cache is the most difficult. Once you get over that part, it's not super difficult, it's just sort of a little bump, making sure all your I's and T's are crossed, all right? You're going to want to refer to some of these. I strongly encourage you to look at any of them. They're all excellent sites. AppCacheFacts.info is a wonderful resource for this particular technology. Read about it, learn it, use it. We're fixing the web for our users. So now we have an empty newspaper, which is a really excellent start, but it's not worth anything to our customers if they can't actually read something. So we got two problems. We got to move a lot of data into an offline situation, and we got to store it. I'm going to start with storage. So there's a couple of options available to you. The easiest is called local storage. There's WebSQL, which is like using SQLite, and there's IndexedDB, which is sort of the wave of the future, but also not quite fully ready for prime time yet. We use Web SQL for ours at the advice of Google. Main reasons are speed, and in the Chrome store you can have unlimited offline storage. Web SQL works with that, local storage doesn't. This is what Web SQL looks like. If you're not used to highly asynchronous programming, like happens a lot in Ajax and JavaScript, this may look a little off-putting. And it's a little bit of doing, every time you do something with Web SQL, you're getting a function that's getting a callback that has the thing you need, and then you're doing another thing and you're getting a callback, and there's success callbacks and error callbacks. It's a little bit of extra work, but I'm not kidding when I say that it's faster. It is really, really, really fast. It is as fast as it can be. I kind of blinked the first time it worked when I switched from local storage to using Web SQL. Fast. There is one thing you need to know. So I've just been singing the virtues of SQL. This is probably a technology that doesn't have as bright a future as some other technologies. So the W3C doesn't seem to want to go forward with it. I think this is what you need to use now if you're using heavy data the way we are. Just be aware you might have to shift your program a little bit in the future to move over to something like IndexedDB. But I really think you should look into it now because you're still going to be dealing with callbacks and stuff, and thinking about it and building an app that uses databases on the client side will really get you ready for the future. Okay, so now we got to move a lot of code. We're going to use another HTML5. We're removing a lot of data. So we could just make a bunch of Ajax calls. In our case, we're making about 22 calls to load all of the sections that we need. But we're probably going to have more in the future, and potentially a lot more. And Ajax occurs on the same thread as everything else that's happening in your UI. So we wanted to put our requests in this little box where I could never hurt the rest of the performance of the app, never cause an animation to jerk. So we're using workers to do all of our network requests. A worker is a separate thread. It's a separate process that can run any JavaScript code that you want, but there are a couple of important caveats. You can't access the window object. You can't access the DOM. You can't see the document. There are a couple special properties that you can see. There are a couple of HTML5 technologies that have versions that are available in a worker, but you should treat it like a separate application. So you take a piece of code, you instantiate it as a worker, and you're going to define an event for it called onMessage. And that's going to receive an event object very similar to one you would get on a mouse click or a keystroke. And it's going to have a property on the event called data. And that's going to be an object or a string that you're getting from the worker. So each side of the worker, on the inside and on the outside, there's a post message and an on message. On message where you pick up a message, post message puts it in. So you put it in, get it out. Put it in, get it out. In this case, we're going through a list of sections, and I'm throwing them into the worker with post message. When it gets back, I'm going to store it essentially to SQL. Inside the worker, again, this could theoretically be any JavaScript code that you wanted. You're going to have an onMessage function, which is going to do the same thing it did on the outside. Get the data, deal with it. In this case, we're making a synchronous. That's important. Everything that happens in a worker is synchronous. Ajax request, we get the data, we put it back. And when you watch it run, when the app first loads, it just goes, worker is at work. And we're back. We're back to this guy. He's happy. He's reading the paper. There's stuff in it. And even if EC2 goes down, which our app is on EC2, not a problem for the users. Epic, epic win. They won't even notice. Now, one bonus point. People who really, really like the news really like to not wait to get it. They get it delivered to their house. They don't want to have to go to the corner to get it, or worse. So for our app, we're using one of the newer features of the Chrome Web Store, which is background windows. This lets you make an invisible window that is in every other way like a window that the user never sees, and that can be open even when your app is not open as a tab. All you need to do, you go into the manifest file for your Chrome app, which is in the bundle you submit to the store, and there's a section called permissions. So you see we have unlimited storage notifications. You add one called background. Then you're going to do a window.open call, just like you always have, and instead of at the end where you would put status, height, width, leaving all that out, you're just putting background. Now, one caveat, this is a Chrome-only feature, and if you don't sequester it and you open it in another browser, you're going to have a couple problems. Windows going to open, no one's going to understand why. So you're going to want to make sure that you're in Chrome, you're in a Chrome app, and you're going to make sure that it's version 10 or higher because that's the version that understands this particular feature. Opens the window. We have a sort of light version of the app that runs, and it's continually looking for new news and new breaking news, so we can notify the user when something happens. That way, whenever they turn it on, they have stuff to read, and it's as up-to-date as possible. So in review, application cache, web SQL, web workers, always functioning app. Now, one thing we're working on that isn't quite ready, but will be ready in the coming weeks, is we're using the brand new file API, which is Chrome only, and we're using workers and SQL again, and we're going to be storing the images offline, so you'll be able to read the whole New York Times in your Chrome browser. We're using the background feature to make sure it's there, and on top of the technology, again, this is a really wonderful platform for getting your app out there. We saw an order of magnitude increase in users of this app by putting it through the Chrome Web Store. So now we have a web app that's as available as a newspaper, consistent the way a newspaper is, and is graspable and understandable for customers. And now we have people that feel calm, confident, and empowered using our app, all using HTML5, which I'm here to tell you we are betting big on. So I'll turn it back to Seth.
Thanks, Andre, and thanks everyone else. Great stories. So to summarize, building apps makes a real difference. We heard from Springpad, when they moved from a website to a web app, they saw, for instance, 5 times more saves. This means people are more productive and using it a lot more. We also heard that publishing the Chrome Web Store helps users find you. For instance, World Golf Tour saw 60,000 new users from 6 months, and those users playing 23% more. And finally, HTML5 gives you the tools and techniques to build really powerful web applications. New York Times just told us about some of the techniques and tools that they use to make their app offline and accessible all the time. So now we're going to open it up to open Q&A. Hopefully you can grab the link here for the moderator. This is also on the Google I/O page as well. We definitely appreciate feedback, so please do provide the feedback after that. And you can find this presentation as well. So please do come up to the microphones. We'd love to hear from you. I'll go ahead and start this here. Okay. So we'll take some from here, and we also have some prepared questions. This is also for the panel. So the first question here from moderator is, Chrome apps appear to be fancy links to websites. Web Store appears to be a showcase of cool sites. What can or will Chrome do to make apps much more than just links to websites? So I have a personal opinion on that, but I'd like to hear a little bit from you guys. Like, how does this question resonate with you?
Well, I think for us, it's just an evolutionary process. You know, I think this is just early in the cycle, and we're all trying to feel our way and test our way into what works the best. And the best way to start is just put something up as quickly as you can. But for us, we really are seeing the data that shows that if you make applications that do specifically things and package them in a way and actually create the UI in a way that's more application-like than a website, you're going to get far better performance because the users have an intent to use those applications, and you need to fit that intent with your product, and then you're going to get more distribution. So.
I'd say, you know, since they're just links in the Chrome App Store, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It is a distribution mechanism to get out there to more users. Users might trust Google. They might find your app where they'd never find it in any other place. And I think that trust is really powerful. That's something, again, that I think that the Android store and the iPhone store has sort of proved. And there are technical reasons as well. One of the great things is that the App Store does provide for enhanced sort of permission schemes. So, you know, when you install from the App Store, for us, we were able to ask for that unlimited storage permission. And you're installing from the store tells you that the app's going to require that permission, and you can build sort of more powerful applications because of that.
The way I look at it, I actually think that the fact that they're links is a very good thing. Right? What's the power of the web, right? You have a back button. You can move back at any time. You can kind of escape from where you are. That's powerful. You can share stuff by copying the link. That's powerful. You can bookmark things. That's powerful. So I think that when we try to make an artificial distinction based on the technology that is, they're just links, I think we're looking at the problem wrong. I do think there's a lot of work we can do as a community to integrate more app-like features, but as you know, Springpad showed, we can be done. It's fairly straightforward to be done, and so we just need to continue to embrace HTML5 and remember that the Chrome Web Store allows us to publish to Chrome, so we can build these apps straight to a targeted platform. Live question.
What about the way those links actually look? So they're like a gigantic hash of sorts that you can't really control. Would it be all the things that you brought up there that are good for the web and things like that? Would those not become even better if we could have some sort of control over the beauty of those links, which are fairly ugly at this point?
So I imagine you're talking about the actual display in the Chrome of the browser itself. Sure, I think there's a lot of work we can look at other people are doing and what user expectations are of the experience too. And so we're very early in the stages here, so I think there's more work to be done, for sure. Live question?
Yeah, can you guys share anything you've learned about managing user expectations? Like if maybe something happened with EC2 and some functionality went down and as a result you got a lot of bad reviews for your web app. What are some ways that you would deal with that or things that you've learned?
For us, it's just being very, very straightforward with the user on what they can expect in the application within the description. The biggest lesson we learned about the description was, if you're going to call your app free, it better be really free. You get a lot of really bad feedback if it's not. So for us, we're pretty lucky because 99% of all our content is free. But in terms of managing expectations of how they can use it, it's just being very straightforward with them and describing your product accurately.
Yeah, for us, I'd say we were affected by EC2 going down, and we tried to be very, very straightforward on Twitter. We tried to blog a lot. We tried to explain why this was happening to them and tried to direct them to the mobile clients where they had already synced some of that data. And we sort of then started promising that HTML5 was coming soon, and they had wished that it already was here. But it's a really tough problem because I would say, when EC2 went down, we sort of failed in interesting ways as well. So we were trying to communicate to that to the users as well. And we've changed our application, improved it to handle some of those scenarios to at least communicate better to the user. Because sometimes they weren't sure if the things they were saving were actually saving or what's going on. Some of the app works and some of it doesn't. So there's a lot of sort of last mile work to make your app great in those scenarios. You focus a lot about when everything's working great, the user experience of that. When everything's working very poorly, you need to focus on the user experience of that as well. And that's sort of really hard. And we're getting better and better at it. But.
Do you have any kind of specific user forums or support forums? Is there anything?
We use Get Satisfaction quite a bit, and we have an active community there. But we actually have a community manager, and her job is really just to keep communicating with these users when these things happen. And people were really happy about that. People were thanking us just for being open about what was going on, which was sort of easy for us because we just blamed Amazon. But it was just they were really happy that we were just so vocal about it. So.
Yeah, you can expect that you're going to have to communicate with your users. It's actually a really, really good thing. So I highly suggest you guys do invest in community management. You should definitely check the reviews and everything on your store every single hour. You should do your email. And you need to provide them another forum where they can communicate with you at so that they don't go just directly to posting a bad post, right? That's negative. So if you give them other ways and you can sort of have a better dialogue with them, you can keep the reviews pretty positive.
And we're definitely still at the size where even user by user, if they have a problem, we can investigate that problem in our server logs quickly for that specific account and try to fix them. And people seem to respond to that as well. But.
So I had a question for the panel and actually the group here as well. How do you see payments evolving on the web? Specifically for the Chrome Web Store, we have in-store payments and in-store subscriptions, and we announced back at GDC that we're working on in-app payments as well. But there are a lot of different ways to monetize apps that may be or may not be distinct from website monetization. So how are you thinking about how to monetize your apps here?
I guess I'm the only one taking credit cards right now. Basically, for us, it's definitely evolving and changing. I think the user behavior is definitely changing in a way where most people don't want to pay upfront for stuff. Unless there's a high level of credibility and they know exactly what they're going to get, they don't want to shell out the dollars. And so what's proven very successful for us and a bunch of other gaming companies, as well as people who are starting to sort of gamify their productivity applications, is you give them a lot of features and then you try to upsell them throughout the process. That's why sort of in-running or frictionless payments within the application, I think are going to get really, really popular. So you build the trust with the users, and then when they get to a point where there's something they want to do a little bit faster, get access to something a little bit different, but they've already find your application very useful, they're willing to pay that incremental dollar to continue. What we've actually learned is that by doing this type of payment mechanism, you're able to actually capture a lot more people who wouldn't normally pay you. So you sort of get a larger mass market. But the great surprising side of it is that you actually get more money out of the people than you would have if you would have just made a fixed price for the application. So the fixed price actually caps the total value a user can be to you, other than through advertising and sponsorship. But if you do an incremental payment or microtransactions, you're actually able to capture a lot more of the top end also. And so we're really excited about the in-app type of payments that Google are coming out with.
For me as a user, I really like the idea that I can have a few trusted sources that I'm going to give my credit card to. I do trust Google. I trust Apple. I don't trust Sony anymore. And so I've been thinking a lot about personally, how do I remove my credit cards from all these different applications, and just like really, I trust PayPal. I trust a few sites that I think are really good at security. And I think the Chrome store, again, the store provides that level of trust for users where they might think, well, I know that Google has my credit card, but I don't necessarily want to give it to this other random application that's out there. That's great for me as a user.
Live question?
Yeah. Do you guys obfuscate your JavaScript at all? Do you run it through any systems to kind of hide the code to prevent? Because obviously you worked a lot on developing those really nice systems. Do you try to protect that at all, or just figure it's out there, so be it?
We use GWT, and GWT naturally obfuscates everything, and also will compress it, and it helps with gzipping that code down. I don't think we really did it to be secretive. We sort of did it to make the code size smaller, and I think everyone didn't mind that it was a little more secretive. But I don't, for us, I don't think we have a ton of proprietary JavaScript that we would be too worried about versus our backend being some of the core infrastructure.
I used to worry about that a lot when I first started on the app. I don't worry about it a lot currently. I used to be very worried about sort of copying, and I think that's sort of a mind of the creator thing, honestly. I think like we worry about a lot. We get very upset when we see things that are similar, like, oh, they're stealing my ideas, stealing my stuff, and like, number one, it rarely happens, and I've almost never seen, a sort of copycat thing actually be good. And I've never seen anything that seemed like it was fit to lure our users away. They seem happy. So I think we're sort of leaving that mostly as a problem we'll solve if it becomes a real problem.
There's so much amazing JavaScript already out there that is open that you don't even have to copy because it's probably out there.
Yeah, and the people that are really, really good would be offended at copying your stuff, right? It would be beneath them.
That's true.
Thanks for your question. I have a question for the panel then. So do you think we even need a store? Shouldn't just search solve this problem?
People, I don't know, it's just sort of like it's a really good expectation setter, Like you go into search, you could get anything in the universe. Again, giant space probe. I mean, being able to say, here's a cordoned off area where everything that I get is going to be an app the way I want it to be an app. The proof's in the pudding. I mean, people responded to it. You can argue about why, but people do respond to it. They like this. They like going to the store.
Yeah. I think we were just talking earlier, before the panel started, actually among ourselves, that we're just in a cycle right now where search is sort of, I type in my intent and I get this world of possibilities, and it's kind of Wild West. The user beware of what you click on and what you find and all that. And we're sort of now entering the next phase of where we actually create more narrative, structured environments to help guide the users through things, so that they can find them and find the right thing at the right time, and something that hopefully is something they'll like to use and find helpful. And the app stores right now just seem to be doing a pretty good job of that. And I think it does have to do with sort of the gating factor that not everything can show up in the store. There are some controls there, and there's some level of quality that is associated with it. And that's what's important. And I think there's always going to be a use for that, and that consumers will appreciate it.
I think verticalized search is always powerful. There's, I go to Epicurious to search for recipes, and I do personally think to myself, I want to go find an app sometimes, and going to a store is a curated place to go do that. It's a verticalized search for apps. That's always going to be a powerful thing for some users. Some users are always going to Google. That's okay too, and they'll still be able to find your application. So.
But there's also the two different user models, right? Like search when you know exactly what you're looking for, and browsability when you're not really have a targeted idea. And I think that's, for instance, productivity apps, for instance. It's hard to find Springpad when you type productivity app, right? There's a lot going on. But if you can have a more targeted experience where you just browse through them, it might lead to finding you easier.
For sure.
Yeah. So let's take a question here from moderator. I think this one's for Andre. Are native apps on smartphones and tablets here to stay, or do you think there will be a shift towards HTML5 apps? What will trigger that shift?
There will be a shift towards HTML5 apps.
Done.
Excellent.
You heard it here.
Because this is something that you were talking about back at New York Times.
When I said we're serious about HTML5 at the New York Times, I wasn't kidding, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But it's not purely ideological. Part of it is just that we were going along and we were like, hey, you know what, this is good enough. This can do it now. I'd been sort of telling my bosses about my progress and the things that we're working on, and I made a couple of changes, and at one point it just clicked. And it was like, this will work. This stuff is here. All the pieces that weren't here the last time that we went through this cycle, they're here now, and everyone's on board. Microsoft is on board. Everyone's on board, and it's all going to be there. And all of these devices are going to have these things. And I don't know, I don't think a lot of people want to build something 7 times and implement a feature 7 times. I think there will be a place for native things for a long time, particularly for tooly things. I think there'll be a long period for that. But I think, I've always said to people that the web, I always bet on the web winning because the web is better at emulating other things than those things are at emulating it. The thing that it figured out is so unbelievably hard to get right that all the other stuff, it can just do a pretty good job of doing it. And I don't think those things will have any luck emulating the way URLs and hyperlinks work. It's just too much. And we've seen this in our own apps. It's just like there's a lot of pain. And HTML5 apps, like if this is today, right now, we're seeing the worst HTML5 apps that there will ever be. These are the worst ones. Think about that.
Yeah, I think is this working? That if HTML and JavaScript were as fast as native, which way would Apple have gone? It's almost like it seemed to me they wanted to go with web applications. It just didn't end up performing the way they would like. But if you could start over and say they performed equally well, they probably would have gone with HTML5, and that's probably telling. I feel a little bit betrayed by the, I was a web developer. I thought it was great the direction everything was moving with open standards and the performance improvements and the separation of layout from presentation, from implementation. That was all great stuff, and then all of a sudden, iPhone took off, and as a company, we had to start hiring up in that direction and hiring up in the Android direction, and we have to deploy to so many platforms now. That was sort of the promise of the web, that we didn't have to necessarily do that. And we're sort of back in this world where we have to build 5 or 6 versions of everything, and I still think HTML5, sort of could be the future to avoid that.
So a quick question here from moderator. I'll answer really quickly. When will the web store be opened up in other countries? Just stay tuned for that. Live question.
Yeah, in terms of that difference between the HTML5 app and the native application, what about if we're building Chrome apps, how can we port those to different platforms? And to avoid having to write things twice, what would be some thoughts that you would have on building a Chrome app and then having a mobile version of it, and how to some best practices that way?
I would say one thing that was very powerful for us was GWT. It's Java. I'm speaking specifically about Android. That we were able to take a lot of our core Java code and just move it to Android, and it all worked great. That included even some of the web SQL stuff. It didn't include a lot of the layout stuff. The actual Android interface couldn't be based that way. But that said, one of the great things about Android is that it has this XML layout language, and it almost also has a style sheeting language. So I was able to really pull our designer in, and he implemented a lot of the Android application with me by just editing those templates, those XML templates and those style sheets. So we almost ported some of the look and feel over. That process with iPhone was quite a bit more difficult, where he was passing Photoshop screenshots with pixel placement, and our iPhone developer got it a little bit off, and they argued about what was off, and it was, I really had wished that we could have done an easier job with iPhone.
Yeah, great question. Sorry, we're out of time, but definitely if you want to follow up, we're going to be up here. Just because we're all on the panel here and this is Google I/O, it's not going to be an all softball question or anything, so I just want to end with maybe the toughest one here. So Chrome Web Store, great store or greatest store?
Greatest store, of course.
All right, excellent. Anyway, thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks you to our panel members as well.